flag. That's a flag. Awesome drive, man. Awesome drive.
It's nice to close out a race like that. That was awesome.
This is the Team Blaney Podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to 2023 season episode 30 of the Team Blaney Podcast. My name is Adam Rogers, and alongside me is co-host Steve Mez. As always, this podcast is brought to you by fans for fans. Steve and I have been following the drivers of the Blaney racing family for 2 decades, and Team Blaney itself launched on social media in 2014. Each weekly episode of the podcast offers an in-depth analysis of Ryan Blaney's latest NASCAR Cup Series race, plus news, notes, and a lineup of special guests all throughout the year. This week, we break down the number 12 team's run in the Go Bowling at the Glen this past weekend at Watkins Glen International in New York. Steve, welcome back again for episode 30 of the season. So a nice solid number there, a nice solid race to talk about, and the potential that this podcast episode might be longer than the Cup race was this past weekend. What do you think?
I don't have that much hot air. I just don't. I'm not that young anymore.
If we would have recorded our pre-talk,
oh my God,
and
right.
the episode on top of this, then we would be potentially longer than the race.
Potentially get there, man, with no cautions, which would, for us, there's no stage breaks for us. We just try and do it straight through. But Go Bowling, that's a great sponsor. And
it inspired us. We went bowling. We went bowling during the week.
We all went bowling during the week before. So you guys bowled like 10 games the other night. Your arms fall off or what? You know
what? I peaked at game 3.
That's all right. You reached the 200 mark for a game, and that's always good.
But no, you're right. One thing that NASCAR fans are good for it is supporting the sponsors, and I will have to say, I feel like we have supported the bowling centers throughout both of our areas pretty frequently. So thank you to Go Bowling, who also, I think, they signed an extension. So they're going to be going bowling at the Glen for several years to come.
Yeah, I can remember supporting a lot of Dave's sponsors, especially when they got that 07 car. Every Sunday I drank a toast to the 07. Right out of the bottle.
That's good. We got body armor now to recover.
Yes, thank God. Although body armor mixes quite well with rum, believe it or not. There's a couple of types of rum that mix really good with.
But anyway, back to this race, which second week in a row we only got one caution. Second week in a row where the race was really quick, and But the difference here is you finally, I know we'll spoiler alert, we finally break into the top 10, so pretty good race to talk about. But action-wise, maybe it wasn't there. I mean, we could talk about this now. What do you think? Do you want them to keep the breaks away? Do you want to bring them back? Do you want to make the races longer? Someone actually mentioned a good point during the Xfinity Series race, the fact that I think the Xfinity race was like 82 laps and the Cup race was 90. And they're like, usually there's a much more of a disparity between the two races. Yeah. So it's like, should the Cup race be 100 laps instead? I mean, I don't know how all the math works out. I mean, with this one, it's just called the Go Bowling. So it's not like they have to stick to a certain number. But I don't know. I feel like NASCAR has the gears turning right now on, which might be too much of a knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah.
Because this is just 2 races where we've had multiple other road course races this year. But what are your quick thoughts on that?
A couple things they can do. One, make it a little longer. Change where the stages end. That's another thing. They do this little thing where it's a short stage and a little bit longer stage and a little bit longer stage. Well, make them for these type of races, make them 3 equal stages. Everybody's still going to do their pit strategy based on being able to get in their fuel window, whatever their fuel window is, or trying to flip the field. And some guys are racing for the points and some guys aren't racing for the points, and how that alters things. So just make the stages equal. These guys are all within 2-3 tenths a lap for a good portion of the race, and without really leaning on each other, except for at the end of the race when it's time to lean on each other. For the most part, they race each other pretty clean and look for somebody to make a mistake. And they're getting pretty good at running 20 or 30 consecutive laps without making a mistake. Especially this track is one that they've been to for decades, same with Sonoma. So I don't know. There's something about the changes, but I think it's just an extreme example. Things have happened. One thing that they did do last week, and was change the restart zone, and that helped a lot too, because they weren't all crunching going down into one. This time we had a little bit of that. We had a little bit of it in the Xfinity race at least, and the Cup race not as bad. And they didn't have as many restarts too. We only had one actual restart. So yeah, I mean, till you get guys who make a mistake or two, or mechanical things happen and cause an issue on the track where somebody else gets into somebody else, get natural cautions. It's just going to be like that. But it's 2 extreme weeks. It's not necessarily going to happen all the time like this. There's going to be more natural cautions. They'll happen. It's just that we just had 2 weeks where there weren't really a lot of them.
Yeah, and it was interesting that this week's kind of natural caution came from a mistake, but not a driving mistake. It came from a calculator mistake, I guess.
Well,
or driving mistake, is it? It could be.
Yeah, it's a little bit of everything, because maybe we'll talk about it now before we get into the report, because listening to Ryan's audio, they're in the same situation. The window for everybody was about lap 40 lap run, and they got to lap 50 and pitted. Ryan did. And what they did, what he was told was, when you feel it sputter, then flip the switch. And then they flip the switch, the auxiliary, pump that gives them whatever's left, and come bring it in. Well, he stumbled right before they got to the front stretch. He flipped the switch, knew he had to come around and pit the next lap. And then, they had the caution happen for, Chase. And even at the end of the race, somewhere near the end of the race, 5 laps, 6 laps to go, he asked, how are we on fuel? And was told he had about 3 to the good. And that's because they ran a couple caution laps in there. But from what I understand with Chase's audio, and what what was being said was something to the extent of 3 more laps, or 3 more times by me, or something like that, once you flip the switch. And I'm thinking,
way off.
Is their thing way different than everybody else's? And doesn't the driver know what he can and can't do? Ryan pretty much, and I've heard them do it before, where they said, hey, flip the switch and bring it in. It should be enough to get you back around, especially on the road courses. But the road courses are all within that 2 to 3 mile range, and yeah, I don't know why Chase didn't question it, or somebody didn't question what was said. 3 times by you, or 2 times by you and come in on the 3rd time. Is that what it was supposed to be? Maybe he didn't mean 3 times by you. Maybe he meant 2 times and then come in on the 3rd one. I don't know. Maybe that would have worked. Because I don't know how many laps after he flipped the switch that he was actually still out there when that happened. But yeah, there was some miscommunication. And then, like I said, the driver should question a little bit. Ryan, they told him, because they knew they were close to it anyway. They told him, it says, you're going to flip the switch. When you feel it stumbles, what he said, flip the switch and then bring it right after that. So wherever you are. So that's exactly what he did. He stumbled, but he stumbled right past pit road, basically. So he flipped the switch and ran 1 more lap and brought it to him. So I don't know. I don't know what happened there.
So not a ton of action on track, but we did manage to get a little bit of drama with these issues. So the Chase Elliott issue, the 34 team, man, goes from having like one of the most perfect races of the year last week, Indianapolis, and they come into this race and have like one of the most disastrous races of the year, between 2 different pit road issues, one on the driver, one on the pit crew, and then a mechanical issue at the end of that race. So it's one of those, like, they get that whole NASCAR season experience within 2 races, where you're at the top of the mountain, where you're at the bottom of the mountain. But luckily for them, they're locked into the playoffs too. But that car definitely had speed, and who knows now whether, I don't know what happened with the mechanical issue. Maybe that was going to happen no matter what. But a lot of that stuff at least kept this really quick race interesting, I think.
Yeah, he got himself a bonus point too. So
yeah. All that's helpful, but I know we keep talking. Might as well start talking about practice and qualifying, and talk about it being a really good weekend. But this was still a little bit concerning spot for me. The fact that they're still struggling a little bit when it comes to qualifying. It's not just been road course qualifying. It's been on ovals a little bit too recently. So, but once again here, they don't come with, a rocket ship, and they had to kind of work on it during the day.
And that's the thing, is that both the last 2 weeks they've improved from Saturday to Sunday into the end of the race Sunday. So, Saturday's practice, all the Penske cars were in Group B, which really kind of stinks because you'd like to have that a couple other guys in the other, one or two other guys in the other group, so that you can get a little bit of this, get a little bit of data. But no, they didn't have that at all. He ends up with, like I said, with Group B. In Group A, the 11 was pretty much the fastest during most of that. The top 12 cars were within 1 second. And I point that out because we're talking about 71 and 72 second laps. That's still pretty tightly together. 10 minutes in, the 24 tops the board. So now the 24 is going to be one of the top guys during the weekend. The Fast Five in that group ended up being 24, the 9 ends up being one of the Fast Five, the 34, the 45, and the 11. So looks pretty promising for the 9 at this point too. Group B, about 5 minutes in, Ryan's about 8th quickest. The 16 is leading about 5 minutes in Group B. 5 laps run. Ryan actually on the 5th lap goes down a little bit in time to 71.892, gains like a 10th. They come in to make adjustments. And he was 10 minutes in, was 9th overall in the group, 16th overall total. They come out with about 5 minutes to go and runs a lap 0.2 faster than the last lap he ran, down to 71.7. And that's good for 10th fastest in the group, 17th fastest overall. About 0.3 from the top 5, though. I take note of that for qualifying when it comes up. Fast 5 ended up being the 16, the 7, the 5, the 20, and the 17. And so we go to Group A qualifying, and these guys all run like a lap, come in, and then wait, and then come back, try to come back out at the end and run another lap. We get let's see here, all of them in the 72nd bracket here in the top 5. We end up with the 24, the 34, the 45, the 54, and the 11 making the top 5 there. And we get to Group B, and Ryan says at the end of his lap that he missed turn 11. And that's not good. They kind of they go back out, but it's never much faster.
Road course qualifying is just so difficult in general because you could be perfect every single turn, miss one, and then boom, you're outside the top 10.
Yeah, so he came back in, just ran the 1 lap, tried to cool it off. Was P12 in the group. 4 months to go, they go back out. They try another run. They do a lap that's pretty much similar to the original lap, 71.233. He said he was not good in the bus stop. He was pretty mad at himself more than anything else. I don't know if it was, to some extent we think it's, performance of the car, but they're trying so hard. And if they get a little wheel hop or something, especially coming out of that bus stop, the car doesn't land right, and over your side, you skid. That's a 10th, as you're skidding sideways. So, top 5 in the group end up being the 16, the 5, the 7, the 20, and the 8. Like I said, Ryan ends up about 0.3 out of that group. The 5th one, the 8 car, was 70.924. So for the pole here, the 11 does get the pole out of this, and let's see here. They got the 16 car is in 6th because that's somebody who needs a win, and the 7 car ends up in 10th, which is pretty amazing. Qualifying for him. Ryan's going to start 23rd. We get to race day, and LaJoy, Amarola, Haley, Custer all got to go to the rear for adjustments. So LaJoy was, I heard somewhere he actually said on somewhere that he was leaking fluid or something like that. And they were hoping it wasn't as bad as it was, but they had to go in and fix it. The stages were 20, 40, and 90, 6 sets of tires, fuel window of 37 to 40. Pit stall 12 with the 16 in front and the 78 behind. Lap 1, we have the 11 leading the field to the green, but by lap 3, the 34 takes the lead. Ryan has gained about 2 spots at this point, gets himself up to 21st. Lap 15, we have some green flag pitting that happens before the end of the stage. Ryan comes in. He's 19th when he comes in. He runs an 11.30 second stop, the Pyrotech pit stop of the week again this week. And you hear that time, you think, oh, it's not 9 something. Well, no, it's not going to be 9 something because these guys are jumping over the car totally backwards. Even though it's the second week in a row doing it, it's really hard to coordinate yourself when you're used to going a certain direction, and now you got to flip it all around. They do a pretty good job of dealing with it, though.
Plus the fuel, trying to get as much fuel into
it. Yeah. But this time here, they're not worried about the fuels much. The second stop, when I give you that pit stop time, you'll see that one is waiting on fuel, and you'll hear a way different time there. Lap 20, 34 wins the stage, and then he pits right afterward, and then has his problem with his pit box going through too many boxes, and the penalties that come from that.
That shows you like just those little details that drivers need to know. So the weird issue with this one, and I think they explained it on TV, was he went through too many boxes, but one of the boxes that he went through was a gap box, like nobody was pitted there. So he almost treated it as if it was like a entry into the garage or something, which they are allowed to drive through those on those normal tracks. So I think it was kind of almost like a technicality in the rule. He didn't realize that box would count, even though somebody wasn't pitting in it. And that's just the first thing that kind of starts to derail their day. But prior to that, he went and drove his way to the lead, and it gets that stage win, and you think, oh man, deja vu. It's happening again here.
Yeah. By lap 25, the 24 is leading, and Ryan is up to P16 as everybody sits through the pit cycle. So, and I think somebody even asked in the Discord chat, he gained 3 spots on the pit cycle. Now, whether it's pitting before everybody else, again, a little bit fresher tires, although the tire wear wasn't real extreme, or the mistakes of other people, like the 34 here. But you run a good clean laps, and then you get a good clean pit stop, and those who make mistakes, it'll show. So they do get up to 16th at this point. Lap 40, the 24 wins the stage. Ryan is up to 16th at this point. Everybody's, it stays green, of course. And we're getting close to the pit window that, like I said, the 40 lap to go type thing. So at lap 50, the green flag pitting does begin for those who think they got the fuel mileage to do it. At lap 52, Ryan pits from 12th at that point with some of the other cars that pit in front of him. This is a 14.9 pit stop, but they're waiting on fuel. So, you can't panic. They're not going to go until they got enough fuel in it. And it's the smartest thing to do. Everybody has to do it. You hope that your fuel mileage is good enough where you don't have to sit there as long. But everybody's in the same boat pretty much. And they do talk about the fuel switch here afterward, that we're going into it. I'm sorry, what we just talked about. They talk about how, you got to, how did I put it again? They told him as it stumbles, if it stumbles, then go ahead and flip the switch and then, bring it back here for the pit stop. So they were only going to run a full lap at least with once they flip that switch. At lap 55, we get a caution for the 9 running out of fuel. He stops over there in the bus stop, or outside the bus stop, actually. And Ryan's still in the lead lap at this point. He had run his pit stop, gotten back out there, was still out in front of the 24. Thing is not everybody had pitted. So Ryan's 23rd at this point, and there's still a bunch of guys in front of him who have to pit. And there's like a pretty good woohoo on the radio when he asked Josh, how many thinks have to pit still. And they were trying to do the math, and I think it ended up, he said like 11 cars, 12 cars. Well, the next thing you know, it's actually, he's all the way up to 7th for this restart. So that's great.
Couple of times this year we've had recaps where we've talked about a strategy that the 12 teams try to do, and if a caution falls the right way, things will work out. You get track position. A couple of times we've tried strategies like that, they haven't worked out. This time they try that strategy again, works out. So this is
Works
kind
out.
of one of those
This
things
is-
that shows you sometimes it does work to your benefit. They caught the
Yeah.
break here exactly when they needed it. He was running decent to where maybe he picks up, he was 16th prior to all that. Maybe he picks up a couple more spots and gets to 13th, 14th, kind of like he's been on road courses all year long. But they kind of generate this track position through a strategy, gets them up high enough to where maybe he's going to lose a couple spots before the end of this race, but passing's so difficult that, top 10 looks really good at this point. And it's really good. I mean, sure, Jonathan, as a crew chief who gets beat up so much, not just him, but crew chiefs altogether. I mean, Alan Gustafson, sorry for your week. But they just keep beat up so much because these strategies are sometimes 50-50. They don't always work, and you look like a genius when they work. So congratulations to Jonathan Hassler for pulling this off this week and putting Ryan in a really good spot.
So lap 60 here, the 24 leads the field to green. Ryan is up to 7th. I think the 16 car was all the way up to 4th. And I thought this is where you're going to see Bonsai Bakaru show up, because he's got to win a race. And he didn't get there. I thought for sure he'd be up in there and do something and, get himself where he needed to be, but it didn't happen. Ryan settled into about 8th on this after this restart. And then had the 45 and the 17 get past him at lap 64, back to 10th. And he kind of had to let them go. They were faster. They were gaining, he was holding them up. Let them make the pass at a point where he didn't have to lose a lot of lap time doing it. So back to 10th here, but somewhere between, I want to say it was might have been lap 75 with only like 15 to go. The 14 car pulls off. The 14 was running in front of him somewhere and in the top 10 and pulled off for some sort of issue they were having. So Ryan does get up to 9th at that point. At lap 90, 24 wins Ryan's 9th. Joey Logano finishes 10th. So we get 2 top 10s for 2 of the Penske cars out of this road course. Ryan, puts out his little presser. And he said this, overall, not a bad day. We kind of had our work cut out for us, but Jonathan did a really good job of getting us better all day. We passed some guys in the beginning, did a couple good pit calls there under green, and had a good caution fall our way there. Overall, I'm proud of the effort from practice to the race. It was a hard day's work, and I'm proud of the effort. So, pretty good day of work. There's only one more road course left, and it's a cutoff race, so that'll be interesting with the Roval. But the Roval's like this weird breed that's not quite a road course because it's you use about 3/4 of the track too, so you still have to have more passing happens coming out of the infield area up onto the track in turns 1 and 2 so it's a little bit different. So that'll be kind of interesting when they get that far. But they, like I said, they improved as the weekend went on. The lap times got a little bit better. But he's able to click off consistent 30 laps in a row where he's within 2/10, as long as he doesn't get bogged down by some sort of traffic issue. And, pretty much mistake free most of the day. Just, to get that finish. And like you said, the caution fell at the right time. So that really kind of helped flip the field a little bit, took a couple guys in and gave him position. He had to give up a position or two to cars that were definitely better, but overall, great day.
You know what I remembered? There's a reason why the 34 had a bad day. And it's because of something, and I don't know if you might have missed this because I think you're kind of in and out on this one, but after McDowell got that first penalty that sent him to the rear of the field, he drove up through the field, and in the process of driving up through the field, he, instead of using his talent, he just moved Ryan completely out of the way to get back, to keep moving on. And this happened early in the race. And I think some karma might have bit them there, because in the Discord we had a little discussion about it, and I said, like, if he hadn't won Indy last week, I would totally understand that move. It's like a desperation move. I need to get back to the front. I need to get this track position because I need to win or I'm not getting into the playoffs. That's not the case. He won his second cup race last year or this year. overall. He won it last week. And so the pressure's off a little bit there. So it seemed like he could have used some patience. I'm sure he was upset at himself for making that mistake on pit road. But yeah, man, I think you might have missed that part but Ryan definitely got moved. And a few of us weren't super excited about that. But when he ends up going out of this race with that the electrical issue or whatever they had, a couple of people might have brought up the fact that karma might have bit them. So
he might have caused that from running around like a maniac too, hitting people. So yeah,
it just seems odd. It's like we know how talented he is at these races. It just seems like a really dumb move. Like what? Why are you moving him out of the way? Because he had just gotten to Ryan. It wasn't like he wasn't holding him up for multiple laps. And I think they actually had caught it on TV is why we really know. So you didn't really see too much Ryan on TV. It was one of those weeks where it was great to have the in-car camera.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is there's when you're one of like 4 or 5 cars that are 0.2 better than everybody else too. That's the strange part because they, yes, he's a very, very good driver, but his car was probably 0.2 faster than a lot of other guys, and there's only like, and these road courses, only like 3 or 4 teams that seem to hit on that too. Except for Chase Elliott's qualifying effort, he was one of the faster ones most of the day. The 24 definitely was, the 11 definitely was. They were up there most of the day. So you're right. Once you lose that position, getting it back is you got to be a little bit patient. You really shouldn't hammer everybody. There are going to be guys that you should be able to get around. And Ryan would have probably given the position knowing, how fast he was. Just like I said, in that last, after the restart there, it was 2 or 3 laps in, 3 or 4 laps in, and those 2 guys were knocking on his door, and he, found a position, found a place to let them pass where it didn't cost him a lot of time, and was able to hold on to the top 10. So
a couple things to mention here. One, you brought up the fact that two top 10s for the 2 Penske cars on a road course. This was Ryan's first top 10 on a road course since Sonoma of last year, which is about 7 or 8 road course races ago. So, like I said, prior to that, he had some bad finishes, but a lot of just kind of average 13th, 14th place finishes. So really good to see those 2 top 10s. We talked a little bit about the point standings last week and how I was just so caught up in this being nervous about the fact that they're watching these playoff bonus points that happen at the reset after Daytona when they go into Darlington into the playoffs, just watching them slip away every week. We did lose, the 12 team did lose 2 more points in the overall standings. They're now 167 points back of Martin Truex Jr., who is the leader. But what's great that has happened is the race between 6th and 11th is incredibly, 6th and 10th actually is incredibly tight right now. So Ryan's at 167 back. The 6th position with Brad Keselowski is at 164. So just a handful of points there. And that's a big difference between getting 5 bonus playoff points at the reset and in 10th position getting 1, 11th position getting 0. The other good thing is if Ryan manages to stay out of trouble, get some stage points, have a really great day at Daytona, that 5th position that Kyle Larson's sitting in right now is just 27 points away. So he has to have a super good day. I mean, win the race, that'd be awesome. So 5th is possible, but I'm really more looking towards the 6th position that Brad Keselowski currently holds. And if Ryan can just get to there, he can get those 5 bonus points. He can add his 8 bonus points that he already has, 5 from his victory in the Coke 600, 3 stage wins. Heck, it'd be awesome if he picks up a couple more stage wins, which he tends to do on super speedway sometimes because he likes to get out front and control the race. So the more of those, and the importance with those playoff bonus points that you get all year long is they carry with you each round. And we saw at Martinsville last year, Ryan misses the championship floor by just a couple points and probably was going to win the championship if he gets in. I don't want to go through that again, but they're just so important to me. I mean, Truex, Hamlin, and Byron are going to have a ton. Byron's going to have, I think, no matter what, even if Truex wins the regular season championship, Byron's still going to come out of here headed into the playoffs with the most bonus points because of all of his victories and all of his stage wins. Actually, it's going to surpass, and he would have even more if they
If he was the
wouldn't have
leader.
gotten a penalty.
Yeah, if they hadn't
If
got a
you-
penalty and he was the leader.
yeah, so it's pretty crazy what that 24 teams almost quietly put together. It's like I think I mentioned this like 5 episodes back. It's like the most quiet, under the radar, dominant season of all time, at least since I've been a fan. And I think maybe it's just Williams, personality, super humble, doesn't make a lot of waves, doesn't really get into too much drama, except for I think like a year ago at Darlington or something. But like it's crazy. But yeah, he's going to have a ton of points. He's probably going to stroll right into the championship 4. So the other 3 spots are pretty much up for grabs. The Truex is going to be in a really good spot. So all in all, Ryan, I just want Ryan to have a solid day at Daytona. Would be great for him to repeat what happened in 2021 and get the victory and get 5 more bonus points and put himself maybe up into that 4th or 5th or 6th position in the standing. So I don't know if you can tell, my energy is up because just a few days we're going to Daytona. That's my home track now. And I'm just kind of pumped up and excited. And Ryan's been really good here. And I don't want to jump too far ahead. So let's save some of our Daytona talk because we do need to talk about fantasy. And I'm sure it's something you really want to talk about, something I really want to talk about when I have one of my worst weeks of the season. So let's do that. Things are looking up for Ryan. Things are not looking up for me when it comes to the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. I ended up finishing 44th in the weekly standings there of points earned at Watkins Glen. My starters, Kyle Larson got me 23 points. Michael McDowell with the choke job got me 11 points. Christopher Bell, 43 points. So that was pretty good. Chase Elliott got me 9 points. Denny Hamlin got me 52 points. So that was a really good haul there. I had Suarez in the garage, which was fine because he threw his race away in, I think, like lap 5. I picked McDowell over Suarez. That was wrong. I picked Elliott over Larson. That was wrong. I picked Hamlin over Bowman. That was right. And I picked Gibbs over Wallace. And that was right. So went 2 for 2 or 2 out of 4 on the featured matchups. Do you have your lineup pulled up to see what
I got
ended up with there?
I had Suarez, Elliott, Busher, Gibbs, Bell, with Bush in the garage, and it was already too late to swap Elliott out when he that was in stage 3 that happened. And I had Suarez over McDowell. I had Chase over Kyle, so that was one I lost there. Had Denny over Alex, and I had Ty over Bubba. So 3 out of 4 there too. But I probably had 20 some points in the garage that I could have gotten a little higher in the standings. But one more week,
Yeah, so you ended up 31st overall in points earned. I was 44th overall in points earned. So let's go through that top 10. And we actually have a 3-way tie for 10th here with Matt O, Go 12 Go, and Christian Dana with 220 points earned. A 4-way tie for 6th with NASCAR Nut 12, Sam Speedsters, Bears Motor Club, and Math Mom 4. I haven't heard Math Mom 4 in a while. They've been slipping a little bit. 222 points. 5th, Whip Wilson, 228. 4th, the Dalai Lama 4, 235. 3rd, Vans 12, 237. And tied for the win this week at Watkins Glen, we have Blaney's Daisy and Factory of Sadness 6. 2 teams that did not need victories, but hey, here we go. This is why they're leading the standings. 256 points. So they share the victory in points earned this past week at Watkins Glen. Let's jump over to the overall standings. You have fallen off a cliff here, though. It's a little bit misleading because it's not really a ton of points here.
I could fallen. If I gained 5 or 6 points, I'd jump 3 or 4 people.
Yeah, you are. But you at one point, maybe 5 weeks ago, were sitting pretty in the top 10, and now you have fallen all the way into the 22nd position in the overall standings in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. I'm sitting pretty in my normal spot, 38th. I'm usually like 35th to 45th every year, and this is where I'm comfortable.
Where are you in regards to the household?
I am ahead. So
household.
45th. So
oh boy, she got to catch up this week.
She did. She had a good week this past week, not top 10 week, but I think she had like a top 15 week. So I'm 38th. You're 22nd. Let's look at the top 10, and that kicks off with JD Racing with 4,757. 9th is Blaring Idiots, 4,780. 8th is Fike 21, 4,793. 7th is Alyssa C, 4,799. 6th is Penske Fan 24, 4837. Tie for 4th here, Go Larson, Eric D 15 with 4,849. Third is Christian Dana, 4,873. Mentioned these two earlier. Second position, Blaney's Daisy, 4,946. And leading the way still, Factory of Sadness 6, 5,029 points. And I mentioned Math Mom 4 there, and I just kind of realized it. 32nd position. So I'm not sure if Math Mom 4 forgot during that summer stretch, maybe went on a cruise for a month or something like that and didn't set any lineups. But Math Mom 4 was dominating the early portions of the season, probably, all the way through the spring, and fell off a cliff. So you shouldn't feel too bad. But they did have a good week this past week at Watkins Glen. So we got some work to do here. We're headed to Daytona. It's a little bit of a wild card. I mean, they call it a wild card race. People were kind of upset when they moved this race off the July 4th weekend, but I think it's been a home run since they moved it to the cutoff race here. If you want to catch the action this week, it's split between two different places, and we'll talk about that a little bit. So I'll give you the NASCAR and TV report for Daytona and a place they haven't been since 2009, Milwaukee. So Friday, August 25th, the NASCAR Cup Series qualifying. Remember, no practice since this is a super speedway race. 5 p.m. Eastern time on USA. So if you're getting off of work right around then, get home as fast as possible if you want to watch this very dramatic qualifying that they hold at Daytona. That is so important, as Steve will tell you. Qualifying at Daytona is super important. Saturday, August 26th. 7 p.m. Eastern time. That's it. The NASCAR Cup Series Coke Zero Sugar 400 at Daytona. You can catch that on NBC. Sunday, August 27th. So you had the Cup race Saturday night. Get some sleep in. Still some more NASCAR racing to go because the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series at 4 p.m. Eastern time is back at the Milwaukee Mile. This is a playoff race for them. The first race at the Milwaukee Mile since they were there in 2009 when Ron Hornaday Jr. went to Victory Lane on his birthday. So it's been a while. And Milwaukee is coming back to life because they have the Truck Series this year. And next year, I believe, the IndyCar Series is going to be racing there the week that normally would have been paired up with NASCAR at Indy. So
yeah, right.
Milwaukee's going to be the place to be the next couple of years here. So it's really cool. I like the fact that we could watch this Cup race and then assuming no rain, we are going to the track. So who knows? Assuming there's no rain, no delays or anything, we watch the Cup race and then come home, relax, and catch a Truck Series race in the afternoon on Sunday. So we talked a little bit about fantasy. We're going to be talking about drivers to watch here at Daytona. Let's just talk a little bit about Ryan here in his last four starts at Daytona International Speedway, and we're going to go back to the summer race of 2021. We're going to forget the Daytona 500 of 2021 when he finished 30th. I think that's when they had that crash and then the rain delay and all that crazy stuff. But that summer race, 2021, Ryan Blaney in a body armor car goes to Victory Lane. We happened to be there. It almost killed us. We were so exhausted after that, celebrating that victory. And then after that, fourth in the Daytona 500 in 2022, 15th in this race last year. And then he finished eighth in the Daytona 500 this year. Last two races at Talladega on a super speedway, Ryan has finished second. He's coming into this race super hot when it comes to the true super speedways, being Talladega and Daytona. And immediately, I mean, I think I still got a start left for him. He's probably going to be in my starting lineup. Why not? What did you have an interesting strategy, right, for this week?
Yeah. So here's the thing. If you haven't used him, use him, because this is the last week and everything resets when the playoffs start. But you want to look at guys who need stage points first off. So Bubba Wallace, number one, should be in your lineup because he needs to get stage points just to make sure that he doesn't lose out to Ty Gibbs. Same thing. Ty Gibbs should be tied to Bubba all race long. He should be trying to get stage points. So there's two guys there that you should have in your lineup just because they're both going to run for stage points. Then you're going to want to take anybody else who's below the cut line who needs a win to get in. Austin Cindric. I had already set the lineup. Chase Elliott, of course, Alex Bowman, Suarez, all those guys, they need a win. They can't get in any other way. So, they're going to be running, at least at the end of the race, trying to run, as long as they don't cause themselves some sort of issue beforehand. then it's sometimes it's by manufacturer is one thing, but for the most part, you're going to look at these guys that need to win and get in, and who's going to push them, who's a really good teammate to them. We already heard that we're recording this on Tuesday. We've already heard Denny Hamlin say that if it was between Ty Gibbs and Bubba Wallace, he's pushing Bubba Wallace. He owns that car, even though he works for Gibbs. But that'll be an interesting thing to see too. Like for the Penske guys, Cindric and Burton. I mean, we forget about Burton too, because what happens if Cindric crashes out early on? Now all of a sudden, maybe, should we try to focus on Burton, getting him up there? What would happen if he won a race? How big would that be for the Wood brothers? So, and really want to see Bubba. He's had a great season, so really don't want to see him get squashed on this. But it's just like Ryan last year. I mean, something could happen, and and somebody else gets their way in. So, let's pick the lineup based. I picked the lineup based on that. If you've got any usages left for certain people, just use them. Like I said, everything resets. 5 usages during the playoffs? So,
yep.
Go ahead and use everything up that you got right now. Anybody that you think is going to be strong, qualifying, like you said.
Oh, it doesn't matter. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant it. Oh, that's right. It doesn't.
Yeah, your tongue was way deep into your cheek on that, and it was so great. Because that's exactly how I feel. They could just cancel it as far as I'm concerned. Go by the owner's points, because it's really just hold your foot down. Hopefully, there's not a tailwind or a front or a headwind at the wrong time, because that's all it really comes down to. They can't run them. They can't run them out there too many at a time where, they can get anywhere near drafting off each other. So, it takes 50 some seconds a lap, and it's just, paint dries and people fall asleep and, and then they still take the top 10 and do a pole run too, to boot. So, when it's beneficial, it's great, but for the most part, it really doesn't settle anything until you find out how you can draft during the early part of the race. So
first and foremost, this is a Team Blaney podcast. So I do want Ryan Blaney to go to victory lane in this race. But if he does not, and if he cannot go to victory lane, I would like to see Bubba Wallace flat out dominate and win the race. I would like to see Daniel Suarez flat out dominate and win the race. If then beyond them, I'm just going to give you some names here, people that will be kind of in desperation mode, people that are not on the bubble, but could win their way in to the playoffs, and I think have a legitimate shot to do that at a place like Daytona. Justin Haley, 31 car. Todd Gilliland in the 38 car. Eric Almirola has won multiple races at Daytona in the 10 car. Eric Jones in the 43 car. Austin Dillon in the 3 car. Now, I know Austin had help from the 45 last year with Reddick. Austin's also won the Daytona 500. He's pretty good at this place, even just on his own. I don't know if he'll get the same help or not from the 8. I mean, the 8 and the 3 were leading the Daytona 500 earlier this year before all heck kind of broke loose and they had an extra restart there at the end. So Corey LaJoie in the 7. These are all guys. And even Allmendinger is a little bit closer to the bubble. I said not bubble guys. Allmendinger has been historically really good in the Xfinity series at Daytona. I think he's won, and same with, I think, super speedways at Talladega. So he's another one that could possibly do it. The college cars tend to work together, so the 16 and 31 are probably going to be glued together here. So again, Almirola, Gilliland, LaJoie, Jones, Austin Dillon, Allmendinger. Those are all guys that could just play spoiler here. Everyone's focused on Gibbs, on Suarez, on Bubba Wallace, because they're much closer to the bubble there. And I didn't mention Michael McDowell. I mean, this is another place he could. I mean, he obviously won the Daytona 500 a couple of years ago, but these types of tracks, he runs up front consistently too. So he wouldn't be a surprise. But these are guys that all I think you should be looking at in your fantasy lineups and have a really good shot of playing spoiler here and outside of the normal folks. And there's still that one out there, the 9 car Chase Elliott, who, when Michael McDowell won his Daytona 500, was maybe, within a half a second or few inches of also maybe winning that race too, because it was kind of a photo finish on the caution flag. So there's always that. I'm sure NASCAR would love that magical story of Chase Elliott, the most popular driver, winning his way into the playoffs. That'd be a commercial for the whole playoffs, I'm sure.
The fantasy, NASCAR fantasy, they have the matchups already set also. They've got Bubba versus Ty Gibbs. They've got Bowman versus Chase Elliott. They've got Hamlin versus Truex, and they've got Ryan versus Logano as the matchup. So, make your picks there, because, like I said, every one of those is 10 points apiece. Down the bottom, if you use the NASCAR app and you're looking at the fantasy thing, and you go down the bottom there, they've actually got who's like their version of good bet and who to avoid. Ryan is one of their good bets. He's the only driver to finish in the top 10 in all 4 drafting track races this season. That's a heck of a stat. Finished top 10 the last 5 drafting track races. They've got Kyle Busch as a good bet. And then they're saying to avoid Truex and avoid Larson.
They historically have super bad luck at these tracks. They run up front too.
Yeah. He's only had one top 5 finish in 39 drafting races. That's not good. Their sleeper, they have Eric Jones as their sleeper. I haven't checked at this time. Who's driving the 42 car this weekend for Legacy?
The 8 driver from Junior Motorsports, Super Sub, Josh Berry.
Okay, all right, cool. Because that's a key to Eric Jones, helping Eric Jones too, is that the Chevy camp, all the manufacturers race this race. If they're going to have any kind of pitting during green flag, they try to do it all together by manufacturer for the most part. Fords are usually more organized than the other ones. Chevy has the numbers; they have more cars than anybody else. But the thing is the 42 and the 43 team are kind of on the outs, because next year there'll be a Toyota team. So Chevy may not share all the information and everything with them. So you're going to see a situation there with those two where he's going to need help from his teammate. That's the one guy he should be able to depend on out there. And so Josh is going to have to definitely help Eric in that regards, because I don't see, like I said, the Chevys as a whole really trying to work with the legacy cars. Now they know they're going to Toyota next year. So
yeah, so we'll have to see how it goes. I'm hoping for Blaney victory. If not, hoping for a great race, good weather, and let's celebrate the end of the NASCAR Cup Series regular season, and let's get ready to go playoff racing. And it's also awesome that we are locked in. Ryan is locked in, and we do not have to go through what we went through last year, because that was rough.
Since late May, we've had this just weight off of everybody's had this weight off their shoulders at Penske. The Team 12 has been able to concentrate and focus on the playoffs, and that's another thing. Some people get on social medias afterward and this and that, and they're mad about this and they're mad about that. And this year they're still doing that. And it's like, you know what, this is totally different this year, because this year they won that race back in May. And ever since then, they've been able to concentrate on what's going to happen in August, September, and October. So, last year they had a dry run for about a month and a half, where every week was a playoff, cutoff week for them. But now we're at the point where now we can work toward these next, after this weekend, the next 3, the next 3, the next 3. And I'm sure that Penske's resources and so forth have been all going toward the 22 and the 12, and getting them ready for Darlington and the Bristols and so forth coming up. So, it's just so exciting now. Daytona is a great fun. Like you said, this is when they moved this race to the cutoff race for the regular season, smartest thing they ever did. And even if it's just for 1 or 2 positions like it is right now, it's for the bottom guy at the 16th spot. Somebody could catch him in points, and then any one of however many guys can win this race and put themselves in and eliminate that guy at the 16th spot. So it's nothing but drama to the final lap. Hot weather during the day, it'll cool off a little bit at night, but the track won't be as grippy as everybody thinks it's going to be. There's some slipping and sliding. Just hopefully there's not a real wreck fest. Hopefully it's not one of those where there's a big one.
So if you want to catch the race this weekend, The coverage kicks off Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern time. If you want to tune into that very important NASCAR Cup Series qualifying session, forgot to mention the NASCAR Xfinity Series. They're going to run at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. So after Cup qualifying, the Wawa 250 powered by Coca-Cola at Daytona. Both of those are going to be available on the USA Network. And then Saturday, August 26th, 7 p.m. Eastern time, the NASCAR Cup Series Coke Zero Sugar 400 at Daytona. You can watch that on NBC and Peacock.
Yeah, no rain because Mr. Josh Williams has to somehow get his way from Daytona to Milwaukee between Saturday night and Sunday. So no rain.
He's got to get up there and spot for Zane Smith in that playoff race.
Especially since it's a playoff race, So we want everybody to have a successful weekend. Anybody that Josh spots for, how's that?
Yeah. So I think, you know what, Steve, I think that pretty much wraps up this week's episode. So thank you, everyone, once again for tuning into the Team Blaney podcast. If you'd like to learn more about myself or co-host Steve, just listen to our very first episode that explores our Blaney racing fandom. You can interact with us on Facebook and X at Team Blaney and on Instagram and TikTok at team.blaney. And finally, we'd like to encourage you to support the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation. Established in 2018, this organization supports causes like the Alzheimer's Association and UPMC Sports Medicine through fundraisers, events, and membership in the Blaney Bunch Fan Club. To learn more, visit RyanBlaneyFamilyFoundation.org or follow them on Facebook, X, Instagram. All of them are very active social media channels. So, for my co-host Steve Mez, I'm Adam Rogers. We'll catch you next time right here on the Team Blaney podcast.
Good night, Brussels. Check out the TikTok.
Well, thanks everybody for coming. I hope you enjoyed it.